Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Governor. You and I had a good conversation about fentanyl.
Yes.
In my office. If people were dying from fentanyl across the country at the same rate that they are in the United States, in the state of Massachusetts, 75,000 people would have died from a fentanyl overdose in 2016, 75,000 people. The precursor chemicals for fentanyl come from China. And they come from China into Mexico for the most part, and then they're transported up into the United States. So this is still relatively early in this epidemic because people are dying at a very small fraction right now in the country as they are in Massachusetts and New Hampshire and other states, but it's coming. It's a preview of coming attractions. So could you talk a little bit about your commitment to raise the profile of this issue at the very highest level to make sure that the Chinese government understands that we expect them to crack down hard on these fentanyl exporters?
Well, Senator Markey, for the last 2 years, the National Governors Association has been actively discussing these issues. And I agree with you. This is a dangerous poison. Basically, it's a less costly narcotic than heroin, and it's becoming a huge problem in many states, not just in your state, but I think in Ohio as well as in other states in New England. It's going our direction as well, so we're concerned about it. If we can stop it at its source in China, we need to do that, and that's an issue that I intend to pursue very aggressively because it's human lives that are being lost needlessly, and this is a poison that needs to be prevented from going on to the world marketplace.
Thank you. And again, this has to be elevated to the
Yes.
same level as nuclear, nonproliferation, copyright, trade. It has to be the same exact level because if people are dying at the same level.
Right.
Across
There
the
hasn't
country.
been enough public attention about
Honestly,
this yet.
this is just absolutely a crisis, you know, in our country. We would be losing 2 Korean War levels of Americans every single year to fentanyl. 2 Korean War levels, okay? So we can't allow that to happen. We have to put the protections in place. And the Chinese can be key in the same way that the Chinese are the key in any negotiations with North Korea. The president says, if China is not going to solve North Korea, we will. Well, we have very few options beyond preemptive military strikes without China. And so it is going to require China to play a big role. But over the last year, from first quarter of 2016 to first quarter of 2017, there has been a 37% increase in trade between North Korea and China, notwithstanding UN resolutions and their commitments to have tougher sanctions. So can you talk about what you believe has to be the conversation that goes on between the United States and China for them to drastically increase the implementations of the enforcement of the sanctions, which would bring the North Koreans to the table. The Chinese have wanted us to have direct talks with the North Koreans for years. I agree with that. But it has to be partnered with crippling economic sanctions by China on the North Koreans, and that is not happening. So can you talk about your view of that?
I would hope that recent events has convinced China that they need to take this much more seriously. It happens to be that the leader of North Korea's half-brother was living in China when he was brutally murdered at the airport in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So if nothing else is a signal, that sure ought to be. The other thing is obviously the threatening actions, and I think recently the China Daily kind of sent a message to the North Koreans that this nuclear mission and missiles that they're shooting off is counterproductive, and I hope that they will use that as a reason to tighten down on sanctions and get serious about working with us and other countries in dealing with this. This is a very important and critical time to deal with that in light of the actions of just the last few months.
Yeah, because we don't need a second Korean War,
No.
for sure.
We don't.
But
We,
without
we,
the
we
Chinese,
need
it's
we
only
need
gonna
their help, and I don't think they want a war over this either. They don't want a bunch of refugees from North Korea pouring into China. I've been to Harbin, which is north of North Korea. It's an agricultural region of China, and we need their cooperation. We need their assistance in peacefully dealing with this and changing this dangerous direction of North Korea at this time.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.